Today on At Your Service, we will be discussing the documentary Sextortion. Sextortion is a film that shows how child predators target their victims on the internet and tells the story of a man who groomed hundreds of children all over the world and extorted them for explicit sexual images. AACPS will be showing this documentary to the community, and we wanted to provide the audience a preview of the film and the importance of why this topic is something that we need to talk about as a community. With us today are two guests who will tell us more about the film and the importance of talking to children about internet and social media safety. And thank you both for joining us today. So just to start, can you all introduce yourselves? We'll start with Maureen.
Sure. I'm Maureen Grizio. I'm the health education teacher specialist for the county.
Excellent.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Bajadek. I'm the Homeland Security lead teacher for our signature program.
Excellent. Thank you. So can you all tell us about, as I mentioned, we have a viewing of Sextortion coming up. Can you tell us about that, where it is, when it is?
Awesome. It'll be May 11th at 6 p.m. at Meade High School. We are going to have some food trucks available. We'll also have some kid care available for students who K through 8. The video is really recommended for older kids. So if parents have or families have younger students that they need to drop off, we'll have something available for them.
Excellent. And do parents need to do anything in advance to register, or do they just need to show up?
They do. Anne Arundel County Public Schools is going to send out an Eventbrite invitation where they can respond, and there'll also be a link where they can respond for any sort of childcare that they need, interpreter services, or any other accommodations that they might need as a family.
All right, thank you.
And the best part about the showing is after the showing, we're going to have some experts in the field to answer questions.
Okay, great.
And it's absolutely free.
Excellent. That's great to hear. So thank you for providing the information on the viewing. So can you tell us more about the film and the documentary Sextortion and why it would be important for parents to attend this?
Well, I think it's important for everybody to see it, not just parents, right? Sextortion is something that called the hidden pandemic, which we'll talk about in a second, but it is in everybody's homes. It's in everybody's backyards. It's in everybody's car, as they talk about. Back in the day, we used to look at child predators as something that was something outside with our devices and the technology that we have. One of the things they talk about in the video is how we're actually inviting these people into the places that we never would have, our living rooms, our children's bedrooms, the back seats of our cars, through those devices.
Excellent. So the video will talk about, or the documentary will talk about that.
Absolutely.
And also, does it provide information and resources for parents?
It does, throughout the course of the video, but also probably the biggest is NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And on that webpage, you can actually report a sextortion incident, but also there's resources that if you want to take images or videos down, there's a resource to help families to do that as well.
Great. Right. So, Maureen, how does this topic tie into the health curriculum that students would receive in high school?
Great question. We have a new course, Health Education B, which is going to be for juniors and seniors, and this topic aligns with our state standards. So we're going to place it in our new Health B, and we're looking into placing it in middle school because they say this is the most common crime from 10 to 15-year-olds.
Oh wow. Okay, that's excellent.
So we definitely want to get in the middle school.
Great. And then how did you get involved with the topic?
So through our signature program at Meade, which is Homeland Security, my school-based team member, Caitlin Keegan, who is a health teacher at Meade and one of Maureen's top health teachers, she and I just started talking about the curriculum that was in Homeland Security, human trafficking, sextortion, cybercrime, and how that would fit into what they were teaching in health. And so I started going in as a guest speaker. And because it is in our Homeland Security Explorations 1 and 2 curriculum, it was really an easy fit. And so I would go in and guest speak into the health classes and talk about these topics. So it just kind of evolved over the course of years.
Oh, great. So it started in a couple classes and then you took it into many of the classes.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, ladies, why this documentary, why do they call it the hidden epidemic?
Good question. The predators and sextortion, they don't need a key to get into your house.
Correct.
They're getting in your house through computers, through games. So that's why we call it the hidden epidemic, because you don't see them
Right.
in your house, but they're there.
Yeah.
The other point to that is it's hidden because kids don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. They feel isolated. You know, if they've gotten themselves into this situation, they don't know how to get it out. So if you don't have that open line of communication, it's really easy to hide because it's on their devices. It's in their video games.
100%. So, you know, this whole team pretty much has seen the documentary. How might gender affect how a person thinks about online safety? Not even between teenagers, but parents as well. I was thinking about that. And then what are some ways discussed in the video that sextortion is often different for male and female victims?
The experts are saying that it's increasing in males, especially with gaming right now.
Right.
So it doesn't matter really what sex you are.
And the interesting thing is I think the societal norm is that it's girls, right? It's your young teen or preteen girls, your teenage girl. And as Maureen just said, what we're finding is that it's increasing amongst males exponentially. And so the interesting thing also is psychologically, males are the ones that are going to hide it the most because they tend to be more embarrassed about it. Girls actually seek help a little more frequently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if someone, you know, a predator reaches out, what does it usually look like? Are there telltale methods or things that, you know, if I want to talk to my child, or is it depend on the situation? You know, I'm speaking as a parent, as a staff member, but I'm sure other parents would want to know that. What are the methods, or what things could I look out for as a parent?
They say a lot of times they're a modeling agency. If it's a relationship, a romantic relationship that you only meet online, and they have very common interest in friends.
One of the scariest quotes in the video was where they talked about a percentage of students who actually consider their closest friend to be someone they've never met online. So
Yikes.
it's really, right? So it's really easy then for a predator to enter into that relationship because oftentimes they are not who they say they are, right?
Right.
They are not who they say they are. And they make those friendships, they gain that trust in ways that a 13-year-old boy, a 14-year-old girl really aren't aware of, right? And so by the time they figure out what's going on, it's too late. And so we were really struck about the amount of people who become involved in this through the online games. Back to your previous question, people think it's cell phones. It's actually not.
Computers.
It's the computers. It's the gaming. Cell phones are absolutely part of it. But gaming is also a big part of it that sometimes I think we don't think about.
Right, 100%. Like, you know, I'll talk to my daughter about it, and she'll be playing games on her phone, and I'll be like, "Who are you talking to?" Well, and so it's really important. Like, do you actually know them, and do you have your settings on private?
Yes.
Correct.
You know, I even have that conversation with my older son who's 18, and I'm like, "Well, you don't even know who this person is." And when I think about watching the movie, I think about, you know, if a teenager in middle school, even in high school, they're having a bad day, they like to put everything out there. They're like, I'm not happy today. And then somebody will say, well, why aren't you happy today? And it can go right from there. And they're just grooming them. And that's really that attachment. Like, do you actually know that? Or I've also noticed that they'll have a friend that they know, but it's their friend's friend that they don't know.
Yes.
You know, and so you have to be really, do they really actually know them, and who are they?
Right.
So it really is vast and can spread very quickly.
They know what they're doing.
How quickly technology allows us to spread things.
100%. You know, when you think about it, we talk a little bit about male-female victims. You know, when you go into those classrooms and you talk to students, how many of them say their parents really pay attention to their phone usage? You know, I think about that, Ryan. I have controls on mine where I have, that phone is plugged away and is not in their room, like, do they actually know what is happening?
So it's interesting you say that, because it's almost disproportionate. So you ask students, how many of you have been approached, or how many of you have had something not right happen, right, on a platform?
Right.
Hands go up. And then you ask that same question of how many people have parents who regularly check your technology, or hardly any hands go up. So it's almost disproportionate, right?
Wow.
And going back to what you asked a second ago, one of the other things that they pointed out, we saw the showing at the Pentagon, and the Department of Defense was saying that they really wanted to push this out to their posts and bases. Well, being on a Army post, military kids are at a higher rate of susceptibility because of the amount of times that they travel. They get posted different places. So you've got the male, female, but you also have military kids who are being disproportionately affected because of, they might feel, my family just moved to Korea. I don't know anyone here. They are more predisposed in certain cases.
Right. And I remember from the video, and I wasn't sure, the one girl whose father was working in Japan, I wasn't sure if she was military.
Contractor.
Right. So I wasn't sure. When you look at that, really, that does make sense.
And that's another reason why we jumped on this, to have this on post. And so I had reached out to Colonel Sapp, our garrison commander, and let him know we have a person on our panel from Fort Meade who's going to be there to answer questions, because again, military families fall into a special category in this as well.
Right.
Excellent. And so that brings us to a good question. What are some of those societal factors that may put a kid more at risk for that? You've mentioned the military. Are there other societal factors that may make them more at risk for child predators to exploit them in this way?
We were saying, we were talking before that it does affect everybody. It doesn't matter where you live or where you go to school. But someone who is looking for a relationship or having a bad day, the predator looks for that, and they could feed off that and collect the information and then become a good friend with you. So,
so
also,
looking for those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and people who post a lot of information online. The more information you put out there, the more information those nefarious predators have to then hook you, right? They know about you because of, honestly, the things that you've put out there.
exactly.
That's a great point. And something Susan mentioned earlier is just a couple, as a parent, what advice would you give parents when it comes to, like, the location services on your phone, or just posting things about your own location, where you're at? What would be some tips you might give parents there?
When we went to our Pentagon training, the main thing they said was just talk to your kids. So if anything does happen, they could come and talk to you. And, no questions are going to be asked, but let's find out what's going on so we can stop it.
So leaving those lines of communication open. So your kids, can come reach out to you if they're going through situations that are concerning, and kind of that no judgment zone too, right? Because they are going to make mistakes. They are children. So great. So go ahead.
I just have one last thing. The other thing I think about is that whole reporting piece. And typically when you think of families like our LGBTQ, whose families are not supportive of their position, that might be an additional barrier for not reporting when something horrible happens to them. So it's great that we have websites that we can report to that can take those videos down,
and they can do it themselves,
or just or just the male gender, just that being ashamed or afraid because our cultural norms are so different. So really there are resources to help them if they can't go to their caregivers or they feel unsafe.
Just having that safety net.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you. So coming up next on At Your Service, we'll continue this important discussion about exploitation of children, internet safety, and we will continue with our guests, so stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Bedell, and I am proud to be the superintendent of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, a district of 85,000 students and 14,000 dedicated employees. We are on our way to being the best school system in Maryland, and we could use your help to get there. Consider one of these many careers with us. So what are you waiting for? Apply today and help students like these be
AACPS awesome!
Welcome back to At Your Service. We will continue our discussion about Sextortion, a documentary. So, ladies, can we get back to the the actual part of the film? Why would parents and students and educators be interested in viewing this particular documentary?
Well, the film, they explain the whole story in Sextortion from the view of a parent, the views of the teenagers involved, and law enforcement. And actually, one of the main cases of sextortion is from a naval graduate who's a Top Gun pilot. And they break the case and have evidence, and they show how they investigate that case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this whole case revolved around this particular naval officer, and he was the person that was
Married with kids, blackmailing all the teens around the world.
So let's talk a little bit about manipulation and blackmail. You know, what are some ways that someone may try to manipulate this youth or even young adults?
Right. So there's obviously numerous ways.
Correct.
Some of the more traditional ways are just becoming friends online through technology. Another way is saying that they already have pictures or videos.
Okay.
So there's a difference between traditional sextortion or blackmail, where an individual just wants additional video, additional pictures that are compromising of the individual. But a new thing that has started to pop up more regularly is a financial sextortion and this idea of financial blackmail. So they take what is already out there, right, where you can get blackmailed, but now they're doing it with teens and young people. So now instead of I want more pictures, now I want $100. Because, and they do that because they know a young person isn't going to be able to give them $10,000, but a young person can come up with $50. And if I'm hitting 100 or 150 young people at $50 or $100 a piece, then I'm starting to add up. So those are kind of the two different ways that students can get involved, or young people.
Wow. And are we finding with these perpetrators that it's more than one person that they're blackmailing? So this is like a business.
Oh, it is.
You know, it's not a personal thing to them. It's literally, this is their mode of operation.
Yes.
It is.
Well,
Yeah.
with the financial extortion, does it sometimes not even involve like images or is that are they sometimes interwoven?
It's most of the time interwoven,
Okay.
right? So they'll get those compromising pictures or compromising video, and then instead of asking for additional content, they'll ask for money. And they'll say, if you don't pay me $50 or $100, or then I will publish your pictures, or I will, put your videos out. Where before it was just, I want more content, right? Now it's money as well.
Goodness gracious. And so I know we talked a little bit about once they've acquired these, they could go different pathways. You talked a little bit the financial exploitation, but when they first hand over those pictures, then what is that grooming? What does it look like? Because to me, it's very similar to grooming, what they're doing. Which to me, revolves into, it could be typically you hear grooming and you hear human trafficking and things like that. Do we know if any of these victims have ever even met their person face to face? Because I hear, people meeting, and that worries me too. There's so many facets that could happen because of this.
This is really, this is kind of a Pandora's box. It can go in multiple different directions. And so in scenarios involving this sextortion or the blackmail, it's usually they don't know each other, right? And that's why it can happen across the country. It can happen across the world. It's not a matter of a face-to-face meeting, right? It's not that idea of going into human trafficking. It's a different branch. It's a different path of really just accessing the content, and then if it's a financial thing, then getting the money.
And also finding information about you or your family, because then they do threaten you that I know where you live, I know where your mom works, send me more.
Right.
Or someone might
So
get
that
hurt.
would be what they would do next. So
Yes.
once
Absolutely.
they acquire the information, then they're finding as much information about not just you,
Yeah.
but who your parents are,
Where they
where you
work.
go to school,
Yes.
where you work, who your friends are, what clubs you have, and then they leverage that.
Right.
And you always have to remember to take a step back and think about it through the mind or the lens of a 13-year-old girl or a 15-year-old boy.
Right.
Right? So a 13-year-old girl who has maybe gotten herself into a situation that is precarious, how is that 13-year-old girl going to respond when all of a sudden you start getting these threats?
Right.
And it does go into it in the video where
Yes.
they started saying, I know where your mother works. I know. And then it escalates from there. And so then it becomes an act of desperation. Well, I'm going to give this person, what the person wants, right? And so I think that the psychology of it is as important to remember as the action in and of itself.
Right. In developmental, it's so
And that's
true.
why they're targeting younger and younger and younger.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important when you say, what can you do? The more information you put out there, the more information somebody's going to have
Correct.
to exploit.
And they do recommend not to delete anything, to keep it as evidence, but maybe block the sender, tell a trusted adult, and then use that information as evidence.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
So when we talk about this, and it's all very concerning information, obviously,
Right.
but important information to understand as a parent. So why do you think sometimes teens, if a person's asking for sexual content, sometimes teens might not see that as a red flag, or they might not be as quick to see it as a red flag? And I'm not saying in all cases, but why might that be? Why might their alerts go up as quickly maybe as an adult?
Right. I think sometimes they feel comfortable because this friend they see as a friend of somebody else. And then, as Susan was saying before, they get to know your likes and dislikes, so they start building on that and agreeing with what you like. And if your parents are doing something you don't like, they agree with that. So they start building that relationship and trust.
And they're not, and they're portraying themselves as a peer,
Yes.
right? And I think that's important to
A
remember.
young-
This is
a
not,
young peer.
even though this most likely is as an
man or a
adult,
woman.
it's
Yes.
actually portraying themselves as a
Yeah.
peer, so they see them on a different level.
And going back to what Susan was saying about the grooming, right? This isn't something that happens in a week.
Yeah.
This is, think about the time that students or young people spend on games on their phone. This is something that the perpetrator is in for the long haul, right? This is not a week, okay, I need you to send. This can go on for weeks, months, for a long period of time before they feel like they've gotten that young person in the right place to be able then to exploit and blackmail.
And we know the numbers are going up because they say 2019 to 2021, the cases reported have doubled.
Wow.
And do you think that's due to more cases,
COVID.
or
COVID.
parents knowing more and actually, or kids understanding more, or maybe a combination of both?
I think more people online, more kids online.
Okay.
Yep.
And they mentioned also in the film that there's more places for the predators to go and find information.
Oh wow.
Think about schools, right? During those years, we had kids on those devices.
Yes.
And if they're on those devices, they're susceptible to nefarious perpetrators. Period.
Yeah. Wow. So are there any other red flags that families or teens should know, if a person is reaching out to them through a certain platform? Are there any things that stand out? I know it happens over time, so they develop the trust, but is there any red flags that parents or kids should know about a potential? One thing you said is it's a friend of a friend. That's sometimes can be a red flag.
Right. They say 1 out of 4 kids, their best friend is online, so the friend thing is very dangerous. They also
Person they've never met.
They never
is
met.
another red flag.
Yeah. They also say they go from platform to platform. They don't stay on one. They tend to move from platform to
So
platform.
they follow the kid from different platforms.
Or ask them to go to other
friend
ones
them or
too.
follow them. Okay.
Chat rooms,
Chat rooms.
games,
Yeah.
social media, all of those different ways they're able to access the students or the young people.
So as a parent, should I go through and ask my kid on certain platforms to tell, let's go through your friends and followers to see, like, how do you know them? And do you think you need to continue following them? Would that be one step that you could take with your child?
They mentioned at the Pentagon to talk to your child and have them share the information with you. Instead of you asking for it, try to get them to share it with you instead of you taking the phone and looking at everything.
Okay, so it's that trust.
Yes.
thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that communication, that trust.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, what is, if a kid or a family is going to avoid sextortion, what are some of the best ways to do that? We've talked about some of those things.
Right.
What do you think are the key things that that a parent would need to know?
I think having that conversation and making it clear that it's not your fault.
Yes.
I'm here to support you.
Yes, I think that's a key piece. Not
Yeah,
your fault,
not your
because I would imagine the psychology part that you're talking about, that this adult knows that, right? And they're manipulating the kid to the point where they're creating a situation where they wouldn't want to go to an adult, a trusted adult, because if you do, think about the embarrassment, or you're going to get in trouble. So like that, no fault, no judgment, open space in terms of communication, I think would be key. Yeah.
Yep, and making sure that students will be students, and so I think the information is key. I think if you allow students to understand and learn and know some of the threats that are there, as well as the parents, I think that that's really important as well. I think, they're the ones that are on those platforms.
Yep.
And if they are aware of what those red flags are, open communication is always important, right? Parents being able to access those platforms is key, but also having the students know what to look for, right? Having them, like I said, when we would go into those classes, how many people have ever gotten a text or been reached out to by somebody you didn't know? Almost every hand went up.
Yep.
So them having the information, the students having the information is also really important.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the kids are the ones facing these potential threats all the time. The parents not online with them all the
Always.
time.
Right.
So
And you can't be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't be. And I think about students that, struggle with peer relationships, that don't have a strong social support system. They do turn online.
Absolutely.
And they play their games. So they're probably another group that we think about that are at risk.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important for families to have this information. And we did talk about, what parents and students need to know, but I know that there are agencies, and we mentioned them earlier.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about each of the agencies that students and families need to be aware of, that if they need help, or if they're not sure, but something's happening with their child, their child has changed, they're in their rooms and the door's locked?
So 2 really good websites, ICE.gov, ICE.gov, and FBI.gov. If you get on either of those and do sextortion, 2 great resources will come up, and talking points and kind of statistics, but probably the best is NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's probably the best wheelhouse, right, for parents and students, because what they offer you is not only information about it, but they also offer a way for you to report it. And they also offer you a way to get those images and videos taken down. And I think that is key. You empower the student to understand that even if a mistake was made, okay, but we can get those taken down. And so that's the place that they can go.
I just want to thank you. I sit there and I hear this, and I know that we've listened to this, and it is frightening. It's frightening for students, it's frightening for parents, but the more we can educate families, and this is why this is so important to our viewing audience today. I just couldn't thank you all enough for coming.
Thank you for
And
having
we
us.
look forward to the viewing.
May
and we
11th.
hope-
May 11th,
Yes.
Meade High School.
Yes, definitely.
6 p.m.
And I just want to thank our viewing audience for watching At Your Service. See you next time.